I'm Natasha Lipney, and you're watching a special edition of CBC Saskatchewan. As journalists, we have the privilege of meeting people who are creative, courageous, and compelling. And in this show, we're going to reintroduce you to some of them. This year, I had the privilege of meeting Jason Trong from Regina. He's a martial artist whose skills have made him a sought-after stuntman.
Younger Jason would be actually surprised of how far this kind of went. When I was a kid, I was like, well, there's no hope to be like in the movies. You know, that's a dream. You gotta go to LA. You gotta go to Toronto to do this. Acting has always been my passion to begin with. No pun intended, but I kind of fell into stunts accidentally, actually. So I sort of over time just built a name for myself to be like an actor who can also do stunts.
It was really cool to see Jason show off his moves, but what really stuck with me was his relationship with his daughters. Their home has become a training ground for martial arts for the entire family, and a film set to shoot YouTube stunt videos together. Spoiler alert, the girls tend to win the fights. With more stories, here are some of my colleagues.
My favorite story is about a woman named Teresa Owach who uses a puppet to teach the Nakota language to elementary students on Carry the Kettle, Nakota Nation.
Who remembers what this is?
Chaba.
Chaba, huh? Chaba. Yes, that's a beaver, right?
Teresa Owach is a language teacher at Carry the Kettle, Nakota Nation. But she doesn't teach alone. This is Kushi, which means grandmother in Nakota.
I wouldn't stand up and yell at the children, sit down now, but Kushi, she'll have no problem. Nachiyo dang. She'll yell at them and they'll all come running. We'll point out that, we need to listen to the elder in the class because she is the oldest, and she helps me with the respect. She helps me calm the children down. She's a great asset to help teach. Like, the kids just love her.
What I loved most about the story was that Teresa, who once felt ashamed to know her language, kind of as an adult revived that language within herself, and Kushi is there who helps her bring that back and bring that confidence that she had within herself when she was younger. And now she's teaching the kids who were once her age when she was learning the language. Do you think having Kushi with you kind of gives you more confidence too in teaching the language?
Oh, definitely. I certainly lack, a lot of self-confidence, as lots of First Nations people my age do.
She forgot her language for many years, but her sister Frida helped her rediscover Nakota before Frida died. Now, Kushi wears clothing made from Frida's dresses.
I sew them into outfits that will fit her, and to me, maybe kind of foolish, but I think it gives the essence of my sister to Kushi, so that she's always with me.
She says that it's kind of like she has her sister with her every day, teaching the language, and I just thought that was just so sweet of her, and brave of her to do, and to carry on that legacy that her sister had of teaching the Nakota language.
One of the interviews I remember best from this year was with Jonna Burlingham and Aaron Legg. Now, their parents, Ralph Johnstone and Laura Bach, decided to use the Medical Assistance in Dying program back in August. They both had medical conditions that caused chronic pain and a rapidly deteriorating quality of life. Ralph was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. They realized that neither wanted to go on alone. So the couple applied to use the Medical Assistance in Dying program together.
They were very active and extremely independent. So it just made sense that they were given the opportunity to be in control until their very last day. Because they were just very independent. And
despite choosing to die together, each had to meet the MAID criteria on their own. Now, I met with Aaron and Jonna about a month later, and they were able to share the experience of what it was like to have their parents die at home in each other's arms on a day that they had chosen. Jonna and Aaron say it was a fine day. They get dressed up for this.
Yes, my dad wanted to wear Canadian tuxedo.
Of course he did.
And Laura had a beautiful skirt on, and
yes, very, very flowy. My mother always loved the flowy and bohemian clothing, and she wanted to make sure her makeup was just how she wanted it.
When we had all said goodbye, he said, 2 thumbs up, rock and roll.
Still shakes me thinking about that. But what I think I remember best, and what really made the story powerful, was these young women were able to articulate how the MAID program worked so well for their family without being advocates saying the program was good for everyone.
She is folding her laundry. She's flipping her laundry.
One of the most remarkable stories for me this year was meeting a woman who lost her arms and her legs to frostbite amputation and described it as a blessing. I met Patricia Beston-Fant earlier this summer at the Regina Care Home where she was living. She told me that for 10 years she had struggled with drug addictions and she was living on the streets. That was where she was in December of 2021. At that point, she had lost a relationship with her 2 children. They had gone to live with her mother. She was dope sick, homeless, and looking for drugs when she crawled onto a friend's balcony. That's where she fell asleep overnight on a frigid winter's night. When she woke up, she had survived, but her arms and her legs had to be amputated due to frostbite. But she told me that was the wake-up call she needed to finally get clean.
I'm very happy where I am now. I haven't been this happy in so long, so if this is how I have to be happy, I don't really care, really.
We know Saskatchewan is dealing with crisis due to homelessness and opioids, and we hear about deaths related to both those causes often. Patricia Beston-Fant was not one of those deaths. She told me today she's quite adept at using her stumps to do almost everything, and she's reestablished a relationship with her 2 children, and she's working on rebuilding their trust. Now, the most important thing for her is being sober. She wants to help other people overcome their addictions and find a new life for themselves, just as she did.
I got a second chance at life, and I'm gonna do it right.
I want to talk about a story, a really heartwarming story about resilience and strength of an immigrant that I met at a citizenship ceremony in Saskatoon. I was talking to a bunch of people there when I ran into Komal Majya. She said she was working at a superstore when someone made a racist remark at her and basically said, "I'm not going to buy this food because you touched it because of the color of her skin."
It was my first job in Canada.
Majya received help from her co-worker, Tina Doel, when she was confronted by a racist customer.
He told me at my face that I don't want brown lady to touch my food. And I was about to cry. And then she stood up and then she had a big fight with that guy. And then she was just so mad at him and she was like, "Get out from the store."
The act of kindness of a stranger turned into a lifelong connection. Majya turned to Doel for support when she experienced a miscarriage, had a car accident, and gave birth to her children.
My 2 daughters, one is 4.5 years old and one is just turned 1. Both of them held by her first. So for them, they are the grandparents.
And we feel very lucky that we have this relationship and this bond, and it's just been a wonderful journey to be on, and we couldn't be more happier.
My family is incomplete without my parents, Canadian parents.
So overall, just a really heartwarming story about a person who became a citizen in Canada and said her dreams had come true.
Another dream that came true this year was one of our happiest stories.
Good job!
Good job.
Yay!
Is this like when I took my first steps when I was only smaller?
Saskatchewan's tiny TikTok star, Bella Thompson, finally received a life-saving surgery. The Swift Current girl is known online as Bella Brave. She spent 3 years on the transplant list. Then, in August, she finally got the call and flew to Toronto for bowel surgery. It's a journey millions of people have been following online. We're also happy Bella finally got the help she needs. We'll have more stories of Saskatchewan Spirit after the break. You're watching a man reunite with his son at the Saskatoon airport in September. They had been separated for 6 years because of the Syrian war. 11-year-old Adnan Karsa has been living in Saskatoon, waiting to see his parents and the sister he had never met. This is one of the remarkable moments our team at CBC Saskatchewan had the opportunity to cover this year. I'm Natasha Lipney, and you're watching Saskatchewan Spirit. This special edition of CBC Saskatchewan is dedicated to some of the people we've met this year who have shown courage, creativity, or simply shared a compelling story with us. Here are some of my colleagues with more.
A story I covered this year that epitomizes courage was of a Humboldt family that lost 3 family members. The tragedy began at Fred Nowakowski's house at Humboldt Lake. There, his brother Chris and nephew Joe were working on a plumbing project, and Fred's 2 young daughters were outside playing when they fell through the ice. Without any hesitation, the men jumped in trying to save them, but only one of them could be saved. Chris, Joe, and 7-year-old Ava, they all drowned. Chris's widow Kristen says the men died heroes.
Joe and Chris, to do what they did is not out of character at all for them. They're selfless men. They are good men. Their act of heroism is truly a reflection of their character. They are extremely kind and generous men, and they loved their family. We love our family so much, and they would do anything. They would do anything for their family, and they did.
What struck me the most was Kristen's willingness and courage to speak in midst of her own grief. Social media was flooded with praises of the men's gallantry and bravery, and the family says it stands as a true testament to their character.
I had the honor of doing a story about the Chinese Exclusion Act and the head tax, which 2023 is the 100th anniversary. I met with the Regina family and learned about their dad and their mom and their stories when they came to Canada. There were some surprises we discovered in the documents they had, including untranslated Chinese letters.
This is the original. I'm pretty sure that's the original.
This is the business the Wong siblings remember. Back then, it was called Modern Grocery. It was one of the businesses George opened after moving to Regina in 1954. He ran it alongside his new wife, Nellie Yu Oi. When the Exclusion Act was repealed in 1947, George was able to travel back to China to get married. Nellie continued to be haunted by her own past, something her children didn't fully understand until we translated those important papers she had stowed away in a drawer. They were addressing your mom's family. She had 3 children before she met your dad. She was widowed. So it was a heavy burden to give them this information. The 5th Wong sibling, Pearl, wasn't able to visit Regina, but she joined us by video conference, and it didn't take her long to connect the dots. She had cared for her mom in her later years. Suddenly, Nellie's erratic behavior makes more sense.
Those are the 2 boys she was talking about, because when I had her in Calgary and she had to get hospitalized, she was looking for 2 boys and they didn't know.
It's okay, Pearl. It's okay, baby.
The children really didn't know a whole side of their mom until they had this information. And they felt much more empathy when they found that out.
Here's our plate. One of the most creative people that I've interviewed this year is Denise Stilling, and she's an associate professor at the University of Regina. She's a mechanical engineer. She's doing something pretty cool with used face masks. You know, those things that we used to wear all the time and sometimes still do if you're sick? Well, she's found a way to take those used face masks and make pretty much anything that she wants to using other recycled materials and heat.
First, we're getting rid of the elastomer.
She rips off the ear loops and the metal nose piece.
We can just put it into the hopper.
Shreds the masks, mixes them with other waste products.
We'll push it into the corners.
Pours that into a compression mold.
We'll place it in the convection oven.
And bakes it for 2.5 hours at 200 degrees Celsius.
Then we'll let it cool so that it stays under that pressure and the board doesn't actually warp, and we'll undo it.
And you've got yourself a prototype.
So she's making things like clipboards, countertops, key fobs, landscaping tiles. And it was really, first of all, it was fun for me because I got to help make one and I felt like I was on a cooking show, but in a lab. And it was really neat to interview somebody who is addressing a problem that's happening right now, a sustainability issue that's happening right now. Because Canadians across the country are addressing climate change and those types of issues however they can, and someone right here in Regina was using her specialty to do that. My other favorite thing about this story is that Denise is a farm girl. She's used to being innovative, and you have to do what you have to do on the farm to get things done. And so she said that she takes that essence of using what you can to fix what you need to from the farm into the lab. I thought that was such a Saskatchewan kind of spirit, and I had a lot of fun on that shoot.
Speaking of creativity, we also met a Saskatoon welder who makes art out of cutlery. Ken Kroon is making a name for himself with silverware art sculptures. Hammering, bending, and melting, his sculptures range from small dragonflies to a life-size replica of the T-1000 from the Terminator movie. We'll be back with more Saskatchewan Spirit after the break. Welcome back to this special edition of CBC Saskatchewan. We're reflecting on some of the people we met this year who are creative, courageous, and compelling, like this family from Buffalo Pound Lake.
Ready, bro? Incoming!
Dakota Kuntz wanted his son to be able to play hockey closer to home, so he built his own ice rink. Kuntz calls the outdoor sheet north of Moose Jaw the Rink of Dreams. It includes a toboggan path, a fire pit, a warm-up shack. There's even a Zamboni that consists of a rain barrel pulled behind a golf cart. Now that's creative. With more incredible stories, here are some of my colleagues.
The hockey world has proclaimed him to be the next generational hockey player.
Regina got to call Connor Bedard their own for several years, but then after last year's World Juniors, he became a household name, and everyone wanted a piece of him, including us here at CBC. We sent a team down to talk with him at the Brand Center just to do a profile on him, figure out what he's like.
For me, I want to be a guy that's trusted in kind of every situation, and that's something that I think I'm getting better at, but it's always something you can improve on.
He was just a kid. He was average height. He was built like a hockey player. He was polite, clearly media trained, but he was just a kid who loved playing hockey, and you could tell when we asked him, what would you tell kids looking up to you? He meant it when he said, just have fun.
That's the camera. Yeah, it's on.
When we strapped a GoPro around his helmet during practice, you could tell he was just one of the boys, just chirping them and, just joking around.
It's going to be on TV.
Regina specifically may never see another phenom like this. It would take one heck of a player to cause the stir that he did. They had to stop selling jerseys with his name and number on it. We spoke with a parent once who said he had to buy plain jerseys for his kids and then get them custom made with Bedard's name and number 98 on the back. It was a phenomenon.
One of the favorite stories from this year that I did was the four brothers playing on the Regina Rams. And I think it was really interesting because this hasn't happened before. That's what the university told me. This is the first time that this is happening.
Here comes the house from the Rams on second down. Amadou takes a big shot, throws an interception. It's caught by Sombak.
That's Jackson Sombak with his second career interception. At 23, he's the oldest of four brothers on the University of Regina Rams football team. There's also Carson, age 21, and then the twins, Connor and Ryler, 20 years old. They all play defense.
We all live at home. We all end up in the locker room together. We all study together. We all come here in the same car, leave in the same car. So we're pretty much attached to the hip for 24 hours a day.
Is that a lot of sitting time together?
It is a lot, yeah. I love them, but it's a lot of time, yeah.
I think I came back to this because growing up, I've always played soccer. I've seen my dad on the stands watching me play. So what really hit home for me is that family connect when you play sports.
Football is a long-standing family tradition. Their grandpa, Raymond Sombak, played football in the 1950s. Their dad, Steve Sombak, was a Rams offensive lineman when the team was winning Canadian Junior Championships in the 1990s. He then went on to coach high school football and his sons.
And he had us starting early, he had footballs in our hands when we were 2 years old. We were playing catch in the front yard when we were 4. All of our Christmas presents were football stuff. We'd get football gear and we'd play.
It was just fascinating to see how sport connects 3 generations or even more generations together, and just how everything flows through sports, every conversation, every time they meet, every time they play, it's all about sports. So it was just really interesting to see how sports is really a very integral part of how they function as a family.
The story that was most impactful to me this year was the funeral of Al Cameron. Al Cameron was the last Second World War veteran in Moose Jaw, and I was lucky enough to be invited to attend his funeral as well as the flyover that was planned for it.
2 planes made a pass over Moose Jaw Thursday, marking the end of the remarkable life of Moose Jaw's final veteran of the Second World War.
Certainly a sign of the times. At his age of 98, there aren't too many left in that age limit.
Cameron was an airframe mechanic. His time in the service took him to Italy and to Great Britain during the Second World War before he eventually returned to Moose Jaw and settled there. I didn't get to meet him, but everybody who I spoke with for that story made him sound like one of the greatest people that you could ever meet. He was passionate about music. He was dedicated to his wife, but he was also extremely dedicated to the Royal Canadian Air Force.
So he was very much involved with the base, so this was very special for us to be able to attend.
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, only know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Cameron's final message to his friends and family: be happy for me. I have had a long and wonderful life, and I look forward to being reunited with my wife, Yvonne. I could ask for nothing more. The reason it was so impactful for me is that my twin brother is in the Canadian military. He's serving right now. He was serving when I did this story. It made it feel like I was there because I had a personal connection to it. And I think it also gave me the opportunity to give it the respect it deserved.
As journalists, we appreciate when people share stories with us so we can share them with you. I'm Natasha Lipney. Thank you for making time to celebrate Saskatchewan Spirit.